Hello and welcome to the lecture on entrepreneurship, section 5.1 to 5.4. This is probably one of my favorite topics to lecture on in this course. I've taught entire classes on entrepreneurship, and of course I did this for part of my career, so I have definite opinions about it. So in this lecture we'll talk about what entrepreneurship means, we'll talk about different types of entrepreneurs, we'll talk about characteristics of successful entrepreneurs, and then we'll talk about starting your own business. And the most important part of that is a business plan. So entrepreneurs identify opportunities and they take advantage of those opportunities by accepting risk. So most successful businesses either involve something new, an invention, something that didn't exist before, something better where they've taken a product or a service that currently exists and they've changed it in a way to make it more meaningful to customers. They've done something to serve an underserved market. One of my favorite Mexican restaurants is in Tenino. There probably wasn't Mexican food in Tenino before. That was an underserved market, so a business is successful launching there. Some new form of delivery or distribution. Amazon's an example of that. Uber Eats, DoorDash, all of those companies are examples of new types of delivery methods. And then increased integration, so getting kind of that one-stop shopping thing, being able to get multiple things in one location. And again, I talked in a previous lecture about how important convenience is to people today. That would be an example of doing something that improves convenience for customers. So here's one way to look at kind of where do ideas come from. That's kind of the most common question I get from people that want to be entrepreneurs, want to start their own business, and the point that they struggle with is, how do I get that idea? So every single idea is going to involve solving a problem for a customer. No business is successful unless it can successfully solve a problem for a customer. That's what's in the center there. Around that are all of the different experiences and backgrounds that you bring to that particular task. So you might have insight based on a talent you have or a hobby. Maybe you're a musician and you can think of something that would help musicians, and your musicianship gives you unique insights into that. Or hobbies. It could be your previous work experience. You could have worked somewhere that you felt they didn't serve customers very well and you have an idea about how to do that better. It could relate to your education or training, or it could relate to recognizing an unmet need. There's something that people need that they're not getting. One of my favorite examples of this is there was a group of college students at a university in North Carolina, and there were some chemistry students, I think a business student, and one of the things that they were very, very concerned about was the incidences of date rape on campuses, people putting a drug in a girl's drink and then doing something inappropriate. And so these guys came up with fingernail polish that if you put your fingernail in a drink, it will change color if there's any of these types of chemicals in that drink. So a young woman could go to a party, she could be given a drink, put her fingernail in, if it changes color, she knows to leave and not to drink that. So that's a great example of a problem that needs a solution, and somebody taking their education and training and applying that to solve that particular problem. That business was very successful. They ended up selling to Maybelline and making a lot of money and doing something good. So the motivation for being an entrepreneur, for starting your own business and taking on that risk, different people have different motivations, but they usually fall within one of these four categories. One is control. You want to make the decisions. You want to succeed or fail based on your own insights and kind of have your hand on the rudder of the ship, basically. You could be somebody that wants a challenge. So you enjoy the difficulty and the stress of starting something new and all of that. Elon Musk is a good example of somebody that clearly appreciates the challenge and prefers that to keeping the ball rolling. So he's constantly starting new companies because he thrives on that type of challenge of making it work. Creativity could be an aspect. You could want to leave your mark on the world through an amazing product or an amazing business, or improve your community through kind of your own creativity. And then the last reason is cash. Make a lot of money, get rich, that sort of thing. I would say of these 4 reasons, cash is probably the worst reason to start your own business, in the sense that if that's what your goal is, you're probably not going to have a lot of passion about what it is that you're doing. You're in it just to make money, not to make a difference, that sort of thing. So a good business opportunity is an idea plus the following characteristics. So one is it's attractive to customers. It solves their problem. It's something that they want. It's something that they think, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for this, that sort of thing. Second, it will work in your business environment, so it doesn't require some great leap or something unusual to happen. It can actually function. The technology exists. Ways to let people know about it exist, all of that. 3, it can be executed in the defined window of opportunity. So if you have an idea, and it probably won't be an idea that would be successful for a long period of time, you need to be able to make it work fairly quickly. And so is that possible? And then the 4th thing, which I would say is the most important, is it can be defended against competition. If you think of a great idea and you come to the market with that product, unless you're able to patent the product, then your bigger competitors will see that. They'll see the customers like that, and they'll come out with their own version of it. And you will quickly be out of business because bigger companies have more money to advertise. They have a bigger existing customer base, all of that. So having an idea that you can defend is important as well. So some of the potential benefits of being an entrepreneur, it always makes me laugh when I hear people say, I want to be my own boss so that I can work when I want. Well, I found that when I was my own boss, it felt like I had a lot of bosses. All of my important customers were my boss. My banker was my boss. If any of those people needed anything, I would jump. I would go into work on Sunday. I'd go into work on Saturday. I'd stay late at night, all of those kinds of things. So I think control over time is a bit of a misnomer. I mean, you're not going to be punching a clock, but you're going to be doing whatever you have to do to make your business successful. One, it can give you a sense of fulfillment. So it can be the kind of thing where you feel that you've accomplished something, you've made a mark. Independence and autonomy, again, like I mentioned, you're not really your own boss in a sense, but you're also not having somebody above you that you may not have respect for telling you what it is you have to do. So I mentioned earlier, creativity and ownership is a benefit. And there is a financial reward, and you do have control over your compensation. So you can choose to pay yourself a lot of money, or you could choose to pay yourself less money and leave more money in the business and have your business become more valuable over time. So you can kind of control that mix to some extent. You have control over working conditions. This was something that was really important to me. I had worked in a number of different businesses where I disagreed with the way the bosses treated employees. I didn't care for the culture in the company, the way people interacted with each other, or the way they behaved, that sort of thing. And so when I bought my own business, I was able to say, this is the kind of place I want to work in. This is what I want the atmosphere to be like in my company, how I want people to treat each other, that sort of thing. And I was able to a large extent, instill that by being very clear about it. This is what I expect. This is what I want. And most people that I hired also wanted to work in a place where people didn't swear at each other. People didn't lose their tempers. Doors were generally always open on offices. People could joke around. That it was a place that you enjoyed being. So that's important. Number 7, self-esteem. It can definitely feel good to have an idea, work on it together with your team, and then see customers actually enjoying that idea that was made into reality. That's a powerful feeling. And then lastly, you make a contribution to society. So you provide something that wasn't there before that make people's lives just a little bit better. So some of the potential downsides of entrepreneurship, one is business failure. So nearly half of all new businesses fail over the first 5 years. Generally, that happens because people have a good idea and they're very good at baking or working on cars or whatever skill it is that led them to start that business, but they're not so good about contract law and tax planning and accounting and all of the kind of nuts and bolts of running a business. So getting help in those other areas is really important. One can be obstacles. I found in my business that any problem was my problem. And so things break, suppliers let you down, customers cancel their order at the last minute, things happen that you don't anticipate. Your competitors might be very aggressive in competing against you, so that can be a challenge. Loneliness and isolation is one downside of entrepreneurship. It often feels like there's no one you can talk to, because if you truly have existential fears about your business continuing, that's not something you can necessarily confide in with your employees. They might freak out and run out of the building. So a lot of times you feel like you have no one to talk to but yourself. Financial insecurity, there's always a threat of bankruptcy, and that kind of weighs over you. Long hours and hard work, I can tell you I never worked harder than when I owned my own business. And you definitely have the sense that the job is never done. There's always more that you could do. You could always stay a little longer, do one more thing, call one more customer, write one more letter. There's always more that could be done. And that can put a strain on personal relationships, unless your family and your spouse is all in on what you're doing, it can be difficult. So one way to look at a business, either a business idea, or you can do this with an existing company, is to do what's called a SWOT analysis, SWOT. And that looks at the strengths and weaknesses of a company or an idea and the opportunities and threats related to that. So strengths and weaknesses, that's an internal type of thing. So you're looking within your company, what are we good at? What are we not good at? So what can we take advantage of and what do we have to fix? And then opportunities and threats are external. So what opportunities, what technology changes, what changes in the economy, what changes in kind of the social structure in the country, all of those kinds of things, what exists in that way that can help you get ahead of your competition. So what opportunities can you take advantage of, and what threats are there? What moves that other people could make would cause your business to go under, and what do you need to do to prevent that from happening before it happens? So this can lead to a feasibility analysis. So a lot of times people will come to me and say, I have an idea for a business. What should I do next? And a feasibility analysis is a really good first step. So a feasibility analysis, you're going to basically kind of try to map everything out for the business and get a good understanding of whether or not it's viable. So this is intended to kind of save you from making a mistake that costs you a lot of money. So the first step is to get a good understanding of the market. So who are you going to sell to? Who are your customers going to be? What do they think? What kind of resources do they have? Would they be interested in your product? Sometimes just straight up talking to people is a good way to find this out. Another is industry health and trends. So if you're going to open a retail store, then understanding what the trends are in terms of moving towards online shopping and delivery, that sort of thing could be really important. Okay. Clear, defendable strategic positions. So what strategic position means, what's going to make you better than your competitors? So what's your kind of point of differentiation from everybody else out there? If you tell me you're going to open the 11th Asian restaurant in downtown Olympia, you're probably not going to be successful unless you're going to stand out from the others in some way, right? Be special in some way. So how is that defendable? Do you have capable management? I can't tell you how many times I've had students tell me they want to open a restaurant or a food truck, and nobody that is going to be involved with it has any restaurant experience at all. So that's not likely to be successful. So what kind of management team can you bring to it? And then how are you going to attract, motivate, and retain employees? It is a tighter labor market, so it is harder to find employees and it's harder to keep the employees you have. So how are you going to differentiate in that way? And then financial control. Are you going to borrow money to start your business? Are you going to bring on other investors? There's pros and cons to both of those that we'll talk about later in the course. But just briefly, if you bring on investors, the benefit there is you don't have to pay that money back. They're investing in your company in the hope that it'll be worth more money in the future. So you don't have to repay that money, but you have to allow them the opportunity to participate in management of the company. So the benefit of borrowing money from a bank is that you retain complete control. You don't have to involve other people in decision making, but you have to pay the money back. And then adaptability. How can you change as you go forward? So a good way to do feasibility analysis is to make a general statement about the basis of your business and then play devil's advocate and list all the questions that could kind of challenge that statement and then research the answer to each of those questions. Kind of, again, play devil's advocate. The Timberland Library is a great free place to get information like that. So the book talked about the 5 forces model. That's another way of looking at a particular business. In this case here, you look at what is the bargaining power of suppliers. So suppliers to your particular business, what kind of strengths do they have? Are you going to be able to negotiate with them? That's at the top of this model. At the bottom is the negotiating position of customers. So do they have a lot of other choices? Do they have to kind of pay your price because you're the only one offering something? Where does that end up? On the sides there, on the right side, you look at the threat of substitute products. So customers may say, well, I don't want what you have, but I can use something else just as easily. On the other side, on the left side, what's the threat of new people coming into the market? So new competitors, what are the barriers to entry? And then in the middle, looking at the competitive rivalry among existing firms. There are some kind of businesses where firms are actively trying to put each other out of business, and there are firms where industries where everybody cooperates a bit more. So the last thing I want to talk about is a business plan. So a business plan is a written document that describes how your business is going to work. So what the business is, what it will be, what the costs are going to be involved, the marketing plan, how you're going to communicate things to people, and an estimated or projected earnings. So a business plan is used for a variety of different purposes. So the process itself is very valuable because going through the process of building your business plan, you're going to ask a lot of questions of yourself, you're going to do a lot of research, you're going to talk to a lot of people, and you may find out that the business would be a failure, and having done this process, you save yourself the trouble of going through that. So that's one benefit. It could also help you determine where the pitfalls are, and you could fine tune it to avoid those. So I can't stress enough how important the process is. So people do that for do business plans for a couple of different audiences. One is just to secure bank financing. So when I bought my company, I did a business plan. I went to the bank and secured financing with the strength of that business plan. It could be attracting investors that want to come into your company. And it could be you could use it to recruit people to come to your company, key employees. So an outline for a business plan, generally you'd have a cover page that is the name of your business and your contact information, have a table of contents so people can find what they're looking for quickly. People usually jump around in these plans. They don't read it like a book, so a table of contents is helpful. The first section is going to be the executive summary. That's usually no more than a page or two, and it gives a high-level overview of what they're going to read in the plan. So oftentimes they'll just read that to decide, should I keep reading? Next is going to be a company description, which describes the name of your company, where it's going to be located, what the basic gist of your business is going to be, a description of your product or your service, that sort of thing. The third section is usually the mission of the company. The mission is, why do you exist? Why does your business need to exist? Okay. Vision is, where do you want to end up? Where do you want to be in the long run, 5-10 years from now? And then a little bit about the culture of your company. Then you'll do an opportunity analysis and research, so looking at the industry, looking at competitors in the industry. Then you'll do your marketing strategy. Here you'll talk about your target customer, and we'll cover this later in the course. The target customer is who you actually want to sell to. Now, you'll sell to anybody, but there's going to be a group that you want to specifically target. So who is that group? What do you know about them? What is your message to that group going to be, and how are you going to deliver that message to them? Advertisements, emails, the web, whatever. And then how are you actually going to make sales and service customers? Management and operations is how you're actually going to make your company work. So who's the management team? What risks are there? What do you need in terms of physical location? All of that. And then it concludes with a financial analysis. So a projection of, this is how much money we're going to make, that sort of thing. This is how we're going to pay back the loan that I'm borrowing from you, Mr. Banker, that sort of thing. And then a listing of all your assumptions. So thank you for your time. I look forward to talking to you in the next lecture on small business management. Thank you.